morning. Today's day 34. I'm going to be talking today about the morning light. When I started my first major personal transformation a few years ago, it started with me running a lot. So I decided to start to become a runner. So every day I would run, and I did that for a year. And although a lot of my running was in the dark, in the morning or at night, more and more as I started running longer and longer distances, a lot of my running time was spent in direct sunlight. Now, I had attributed most of my physiological and mental improvement to the fact that I was running. But as I look back at it, I realized that me spending more time outdoors and more time under direct sunlight had a direct and significant impact on me. I then got injured and had some difficulty, and I had to spend less time running. And I blamed, I gained weight and I started not feeling so good, and I blamed the fact that I couldn't be running on that. But I also was spending a lot more time indoors, locked away, and not in direct sunlight. So today's video is to basically convince you. And by the way, I wrote a blog with this video as well. It'll be in the comments. And in that blog, I've provided the research and more specific data on what I'm about ready to say. But it is probably pretty conclusive that humans should definitely spend time outdoors. Now, obviously, we need to protect ourselves from UV radiation exposure and potential sunburns and skin cancer, things like that. So we need to take the obvious protections. But clearly, the research and data out there absolutely supports this very powerful notion that human beings were designed to be outdoors in direct sunlight frequently and often, and usually engaged in hard work. So now we've kind of created this environment where we can spend most of our time indoors. We wake up in the dark, we get dressed under artificial light, we drive in our cars under artificial light, we go to an office under a very dimly lit office because we're trying to save the environment, and we spend all day staring at LED screens, and we come home and we spend all night staring at LED screens, and then we go to bed in darkness. So we just don't get a lot of light exposure anymore. If you think about it, humans used to be under light exposure all the time, 24/7. I mean, or as long as the sun was up. So obviously, a lot of research has also shown that cultures that were in less light exposure have had a greater propensity for mental illness and other issues. So, or people that lived at higher elevations have more health concerns related to vitamin D deficiency. So it's just interesting if you think about it, how we are designed to be more in the light. So if you are trying to transform yourself, and you're doing it with a treadmill like I have back here, or you're doing it with indoor gym activity, and you're not spending time outdoors, it's not going to be as easy. I mean, you can still do it. It's just not going to be as easy. Being outdoors and being outside is a definite component to helping yourself feel better. Now, I won't get into it all, but everybody knows that being outdoors, your body creates vitamin D under direct sunlight. But what it's actually doing is taking excess cholesterol and using sunlight, combining that together to create vitamin D, almost in a very similar way that a plant does. So we're creating vitamin. We have the ability to formulate vitamin D naturally through sunlight and cholesterol. And vitamin D is also a fat-soluble vitamin, meaning it's stored in your fat and it's less likely to get urinated out if you take a bunch of vitamin D, like if you eat just vitamin D or take the tablets or whatever, a lot of times when you take too much of a vitamin, it'll just come out in your urine. You're basically producing really expensive pee. But vitamin D is fat soluble, meaning it gets stored in fat, which is interesting. It also means that vitamin D is generally processed in your gut, which has a lot of interesting effects. For example, vitamin D is proven to have can help with bone health because as vitamin D is absorbed and processed in your gut, it helps. And I don't know the science behind it. Somebody else can explain it, but it helps with calcium absorption. So there's a connection there with the calcium absorption. It also has been shown to help with the immune system, muscle function, anti-inflammation, and cell growth regulation, improving cellular growth, or maybe help. And some scientists have even said that it could potentially help with cancer. Don't know if that's true or not, but you can read the research. So vitamin D is definitely a core component of being outside. Now, before you think you can just start taking massive amounts of vitamin D3, which by the way, D3 is the type of vitamin D that our body naturally produces. But before you think you can just take the pills and get out of it, there has been countless research, and I just decided to do some searching around to see what I could find. And I found, not only did I find lots of evidence on boosting your vitamin D supply through sunlight, but I also found that there's other health benefits directly related to being outside. So people being exposed to full UV spectrum has some significant benefit. And there's been some research that have shown that. There was one study which proved that being outdoors or being outside more often, there's a direct correlation between exposure and direct sunlight and the reduction of mortality rates to things like COVID-19. They also, there's lots of things about reduction of obesity by being outdoors more. That may just because you're exercising when you're outdoors. I don't know, but there's definitely some research that indicates that. And there's lots of discussions about physiological response and mental response. There seems to be a better rhythm to our mind and body when we wake up or exposed to sun. That wakes us up. And then when we go to bed, we go into darkness, and that causes different hormones and chemicals to fire off. So there's this rhythm that we get into, wake up and go to bed. I know when I go backpacking, I tend to wake up with the sun, and I tend to go to bed with the sun. And I always feel better about that because it's like, this just feels natural. After 3 or 4 days of being out in the wilderness, you start to get into that rhythm. And it's just very interesting. Anyway, if you want to know the exact research that I looked up, you can read the blog. You can read my article, which is in the comments. Now, bottom line is, I think we need to spend more time outdoors. Now, that can be hard, especially if you have a job that prevents you from doing so. But I have I came up with some ideas. So first off, outdoor exercise, like running outside, is great. You can come up with lots of other things, walking, jogging, bicycling, whatever, but putting some time outdoor exercise is a great way to get more. I started raising tomatoes this summer. So in order to keep my tomatoes alive and bug-free, I had to go outside all the time to check on my tomatoes. So gardening can be a great way to get outdoors. Some people enjoy sports. So tennis, golf, soccer, volleyball, beach volleyball would be a great way to spend more time outdoors as well. You know, we talk a lot about getting together more as a family. So I was thinking, oftentimes when we have people come over as a family, we eat indoors or go to a restaurant. Well, why not just have a good old fashioned picnic? That'd be a good way to get outdoors. We haven't done that in a long time, so maybe I need to recommend that. Um, Going on nature hikes or just a walk, if you need to take a break from being stuck in your office, just go outside and go for a walk. That'd be a good thing too. When's the last time you've been to a beach or to a lake? That you should make that as a regular course. That's a good idea. You can also adjust your indoor environment. Like I'm in this office and I have blinds and stuff to really lock down the sunlight so I can have better lighting. But you might want to open up some blinds, open up some windows, get some sunlight exposure. Just feel better about yourself because you have light coming in. Uh, you know, Also, I belonged for a while to a running club, and it required me to go. It was a once a week meeting where we would talk about running and then go for a jog. And that gave me motivation and incentive to get up and go and get outside. Above all, the thing that I do is every morning I wake up, I have an artificial UV light thing that I use while I'm typing in the morning. I write a lot in the morning and I turn that on. That kind of helps me. But every morning when the sun comes up, when it's fully up, like 9 or 10 in the morning, I'll just go outside and hang out on a bench for a while and just think and just contemplate stuff. And that alone, that's been very beneficial to me in general. Bottom line is, if you want to transform yourself, you have to consider spending more time outside. Got to be out in the sunlight more. It just helps you feel better.